What happens when a member of the British royal family believes he knows better than one of America's most beloved late-night hosts? What happens when entitlement collides with entertainment, when privilege runs headfirst into comedy? Tonight, we explore one of the most astonishing moments in late-night television history, a moment that left audiences speechless, producers scrambling, and security stepping in to do something they never expected to do. This is the story of how Prince Harry ended up being physically escorted off The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And believe me, the way it unfolded is almost unbelievable. The Ed Sullivan Theatre was alive with anticipation. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, was scheduled to appear on The Late Show to promote his latest charitable effort. What was expected to be a standard celebrity interview was about to become anything but ordinary. Stephen Colbert, known for his sharp humor and his ability to navigate even the most challenging guests, prepared for what he assumed would be a straightforward discussion about philanthropy and royal life in America. The interview began calmly enough. Colbert welcomed Prince Harry with his signature charm. "Your Royal Highness, welcome to the show. How are you enjoying life in California?" Harry settled into his chair with visible impatience and replied bluntly, "Well, Stephen, first of all, I prefer just Harry now. The whole Royal Highness thing is part of what I left behind, and frankly, I thought your research team would have known that." The audience shifted uneasily. Colbert, maintaining his professionalism, smiled and nodded. "Of course, my apologies, Harry. Tell us about the new initiative you're working on." But Harry wasn't ready to move forward. "You know, Stephen, this is exactly what frustrates me about American media. You invite someone onto your show, claim you want a real conversation, yet you can't even get basic details right. How am I supposed to trust anything else you say tonight?" Colbert raised his eyebrows slightly, sensing the tension. "Well, Harry, most people would see that as a sign of respect, but I hear you. Let's talk about your work with veteran mental health services." "That's another issue." Harry interrupted, his agitation growing. "You always focus on the veterans angle because it makes good television. But what about the broader mental health crisis? What about the systemic problems that create these issues in the first place? Are we going to have a real discussion tonight, or just stick to your predetermined talking points?" The studio fell silent. This wasn't the warm, relatable Prince Harry the audience expected. Colbert, skilled at handling awkward moments, attempted to steer the conversation. "That's a fair point. What systemic issues do you think need to be addressed?" Harry leaned forward, his tone turning confrontational. "Oh, now you want the real conversation, after I had to call out your lazy preparation. Stephen, with all due respect, you have one of the biggest platforms in American television. You could be using this time to educate people about the root causes of mental health struggles, how society treats those who speak about trauma, and how institutions protect themselves at the expense of individuals." "I think we are having that conversation," Colbert replied, his voice steady but edged with firmness. "But I also think our audience would appreciate some context about your personal experiences." "My personal experience?" Harry's voice rose. "Do you have any idea what it's like to have your life dissected and commodified by people who've never lived it? To have your trauma turned into entertainment?" The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Harry was on a talk show promoting his own projects while criticizing the very idea of personal experiences being used for entertainment. Sensing the growing absurdity, Colbert offered a gentle pushback. "Well, Harry, you did write a best-selling memoir about your experiences, and you're here tonight to promote your work. It seems fair to say you've been willing to share your story." The remark struck a nerve. Harry's face flushed as he leaned back, visibly furious. "One, it serves my purposes. Everything I've done has been about helping others. How dare you suggest I'm profiting from my trauma?" "I didn't say that," Colbert replied calmly. "I pointed out that you chose to make your story public, so it's reasonable that people want to talk about it." "Chose?" Harry's voice grew louder, filling the studio. "You think I chose to lose my mother in a car crash chased by photographers? You think I chose to grow up in an institution that protected its image instead of its children? You think I chose to have every mistake and moment of grief turned into headlines?" The audience remained frozen, some uncomfortable, others transfixed by the dramatic turn. Realizing he needed to regain control, Colbert tried again. "Harry, people have tremendous sympathy for what you endured as a child. No one would say you chose that. But you're here to discuss your current work, so perhaps we could focus on that. But Harry was past calming down. I don't want sympathy. I want people to understand that growing up the way I did changes how you see the world. It makes you hypersensitive to being dismissed, misunderstood, reduced to sound bites. I understand that, Colbert said, his patience thinning. But you're not being dismissed. You're being given a platform to share your message with millions. Isn't that what you want? Harry abruptly stood up, his chair scraping loudly across the floor. What I want is to be treated with the same respect you'd show any other guest. I want you to engage with what I'm saying instead of managing me like a difficult celebrity. The tension in the Ed Sullivan Theater was undeniable. Harry stood towering over Colbert, who remained seated behind his desk, struggling to maintain control of his own show. The audience sat motionless, unsure whether they were witnessing a breakdown or one of the most uncomfortable moments in late-night television history. Colbert, drawing on decades of experience handling unpredictable moments, gently motioned for Harry to sit back down. "Harry, please, let's take a breath. Why don't you sit down and we can continue this conversation?" "No, I will not sit down," Harry replied, his voice carrying across the studio with surprising intensity. "This is exactly what I'm talking about, Stephen. You're trying to manage me, trying to control the narrative. Sit down, calm down, get back to the scheduled program." "But what if I don't want to follow your script?" The cameras continued rolling, capturing every second of the increasingly surreal confrontation. Realizing his usual charm and humor wouldn't diffuse the situation, Colbert shifted to a more direct tone. "Harry, I'm not trying to control any narrative. This is a talk show. We have conversations. That's literally what we do. If you want a different kind of conversation, I'm open to that. But you have to work with me. Work with you." Harry laughed, though there was no humor in it. "Do you have any idea how many times I've been told to work with people? Work with the palace. Work with the press. Work with protocol. Work with the system. And where did that get me? It gave me a front row seat to watching my life be dismantled by people who claimed they were helping. I am trying to help you right now," Colbert said, his voice rising slightly. "You came on my show to promote your work. I'm giving you a platform to do exactly that. But you seem more interested in turning this into a therapy session than actually discussing your charitable initiatives." The words hit Harry like a physical blow. His face drained of color, and when he spoke again, his voice was dangerously quiet. "Therapy session. Did you just suggest that my attempt to have an honest conversation about institutional trauma is a therapy session?" Colbert immediately realized his misstep. "Harry, that's not what I meant." "No, Stephen, I think that's exactly what you meant," Harry shot back. "This is what always happens. Someone speaks truth to power, explains how these systems really work, and suddenly they're dismissed as unstable, difficult, or in need of therapy. Tell me, when you criticize politicians on this show, when you call out corruption and hypocrisy, do people tell you that you need therapy? That's different." Colbert replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Is it? Or is it only different because you're the one with the power here? You have the microphone, you have the audience. You decide what counts as legitimate criticism and what gets labeled a therapy session." The audience was completely silent, several people in the front rows visibly uncomfortable. This had moved beyond awkward television into something deeply unsettling. Colbert glanced toward his producers offstage, but the cameras kept rolling, and cutting away would only escalate things. "Harry, I think we need to take a commercial break," Colbert said, attempting to regain control. "No," Harry replied firmly. "We're not taking a commercial break. We're finishing this conversation. You opened this door when you dismissed my concerns as a therapy session. So let's talk about therapy. Let's talk about what it's like to be told by an entire institution that your perceptions are wrong, your memories are faulty, your reactions inappropriate." "Harry, please." "Please what?" Harry interrupted. "Please stop making you uncomfortable. Please stop forcing you to confront what it's like to be gaslit by people in power. You joke every night about politicians lying to the public. But when someone talks about being lied to by those meant to protect them, suddenly it's time for a commercial." Colbert stood up, matching Harry's posture. "You're right. Let's not take a break. Let's be honest about what's happening. You came on my show hostile from the moment you sat down. You've refused to engage with my questions, And now you're lecturing me about power dynamics while standing in my studio, on my show, using my platform to air your grievances. Your platform? Harry said incredulously. Do you think this show exists in a vacuum? Do you think people tune in just to watch you or to see the guests you bring on? Without guests, without people willing to share their stories, you'd just be a man behind a desk talking to himself. That's true, Colbert acknowledged. But guests come here because they want something, promotion for their books, projects, or causes. You're here because you want something from me and my audience. So let's drop the idea that you're doing me a favor. Harry fell silent for a moment. It seemed, briefly, like he might sit down and try to salvage the interview. Then his expression hardened, and his voice turned cold. You know what I want, Stephen? I want to be treated like a human being, not a content generator. I want a conversation, not a performance on your variety show. I want to talk about things that actually matter instead of hitting predetermined talking points for sound bites and viral moments. Then talk, Colbert said, spreading his arms. The floor is yours. Say whatever you want. I'll listen. Will you really listen? Harry challenged. Or will you just wait for your chance to make a joke? Will you engage with what I'm saying, or steer it back to whatever your producers told you to ask? I guess we'll find out, Colbert replied. But you have to start talking about something other than how unfairly you think you're being treated. Harry stared at him as the silence stretched uncomfortably. The audience held its breath. Finally, Harry shook his head. This is impossible. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You ask me to talk, but you've already decided that anything about my real experience is just complaining. You want the version of Prince Harry that makes good television. The moment I'm honest about what this life is actually like, you shut me down. I haven't shut you down, Colbert said firmly. You've been talking nonstop. The problem is, you're not saying anything. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Harry's expression cycled through anger, hurt, disbelief, and finally something close to rage. For a brief moment, it looked as though he might lunge across the desk. Instead, he stepped back and let out a bitter laugh that sent a chill through the theater. Not saying anything, Harry repeated, barely containing himself. I've been trying to explain what it's like to live in a system designed to silence you, and your response is that I'm not saying anything. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Colbert, sensing he had pushed too far, tried to walk back his comment. Harry, that's not what I meant. I meant that we haven't talked about your current projects, which is why you're here. No, Stephen, that's exactly what you meant, Harry replied. And you know what? It's perfect. Absolutely perfect, because you just proved my point better than I ever could. Here I am trying to talk honestly about institutional gaslighting. And what do? You gaslight me. You tell me that my attempt to communicate is not saying anything. Harry began pacing behind his chair, his movements erratic and agitated. Camera operators struggled to keep him in frame, and the audience's concern was now obvious. Several people in the front row stood and moved toward the exits. Harry, I really think we need to take a break now, Colbert said, firm but measured. No, Harry shouted, his voice echoing through the theater. We are not taking a break. You don't get to dismiss me and then hide behind a commercial. You don't get to gaslight me on national television and then pretend it didn't happen. The studio fell completely silent except for the hum of cameras and lights. Crew members stood frozen, unsure how to respond. This had gone far beyond anything they had experienced. Colbert looked directly into the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break and... Don't you dare, Harry said, moving toward Colbert's desk. Don't you dare cut away from this. This is exactly what they do, Stephen. The moment someone tells the truth, the moment someone refuses to play along, they cut away. They protect the institution and silence the individual. Harry, you need to calm down, Colbert said, standing up and backing away. Calm down, Harry snapped. Do you know how many times I've been told that? How many times those exact words were used to dismiss everything I was trying to say? Every time I spoke up about injustice, hypocrisy, or how this system actually works, someone told me to calm down. But you do need to calm down, Colbert replied. You're scaring the audience. You're scaring me. Harry stopped pacing and stared at him in disbelief. I'm scaring you. I'm a guest on your show, standing in your studio, trying to have a conversation, and I'm the one scaring you. Do you see how fast the narrative flips? The moment someone refuses to be managed, They become the threat. At that point, two security guards quietly entered the studio and stood near the wings. Harry noticed immediately. Oh, perfect. Now we have security. God forbid someone have an emotional reaction to being systematically dismissed and gaslit. Stephen, do you see this? You couldn't handle an honest conversation, so you called security. I didn't call security, Colbert said, which was technically true. The decision had been made by producers. You didn't have to, Harry replied. This is how the system works. The moment someone steps out of line, enforcement kicks in automatically. One of the guards stepped forward. Sir, we're going to need you to come with us. Come with you, Harry snapped. Where? What law have I broken? What rule have I violated? I'm having a conversation. Is that illegal now? You're disrupting the taping and making people uncomfortable. The guard replied calmly. Making people uncomfortable. Harry said, incredulous. That's the crime now? Having feelings. Speaking truth. Colbert stepped forward. Harry, nobody is saying you committed a crime. But this isn't working. You came here to talk about your charitable work, and instead we've spent the entire time arguing about media and institutional power. That's not what our audience signed up for. Your audience signed up to watch human beings have real conversations. Harry shot back. Not performances. Not scripted interactions designed to sell products. If they're uncomfortable watching real emotion, that says more about them than it does about me. The second guard moved closer, flanking Harry. This is unbelievable, Harry said, looking around the studio. You invite me here, claim you want a conversation, and the moment I'm honest, you call security and remove me. And you probably think you're the good guys. We're protecting people, one guard said quietly. From what? Harry demanded. From hearing about institutional trauma. From seeing what happens when someone refuses to perform their assigned role. Colbert made one last attempt to de-escalate. Harry, if you sit down, if we finish this conversation like adults, nobody has to be escorted anywhere. Harry looked at him for a long moment, then shook his head. No, I won't sit down and pretend this is normal. You've already shown me exactly how this system works. Having me escorted out is just the logical conclusion. He turned to the guards. Fine, let's go. Let's give everyone the ending they want. The difficult guest removed, order restored. As he was escorted out, Harry called back over his shoulder. Stephen, I hope you got all the content you were looking for. Prince Harry was escorted off The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, leaving behind a stunned audience, a shaken host, and one of the most bizarre moments in late-night television history. The cameras kept rolling as Colbert, visibly rattled, tried to address the audience and salvage the broadcast. And that's how what began as a simple promotional interview turned into a complete breakdown, ending with a guest being physically removed from one of America's most popular talk shows. So what do you think? Was Harry exposing institutional gaslighting and media manipulation, or was this an entitled celebrity unraveling on live television? Share your thoughts and subscribe for more stories like this.